Breaking: a major legal development connected to the U.S. Department of Justice is now drawing nationwide attention. Across America, courts, legal experts, and lawmakers are watching closely, because when legal interpretation shifts, the impact can reach far beyond one courtroom. Could this influence how gun laws are interpreted across the United States? Let's break it down. Breaking: the Department of Justice has issued a statement that is raising serious legal discussion around gun laws in the United States. Before we continue, make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, because here we bring clear and simple breakdowns of major legal developments, court decisions, and constitutional issues. Gun laws in America are shaped over time through court rulings, legal interpretation, and the balance between federal and state authority. What is happening now may not look dramatic at first, but its legal impact could influence how regulations are reviewed, challenged, and applied in the future. Let's begin with the legal foundation. Legal interpretation shift. Recent legal activity suggests federal authorities are closely reviewing gun regulations. Courts now emphasize constitutional standards, historical reasoning, and structured legal analysis. Judges focus on law, not politics, when interpreting complex constitutional questions. Even minor interpretation shifts can significantly influence how regulations are applied. Legal change often begins quietly, through clarification rather than dramatic headlines. Small judicial reasoning today can shape major rulings in the future. When interpretation evolves, the direction of future cases often follows. Courts carefully examine historical tradition when reviewing modern firearm regulations. Legal debates now center on constitutional text, structure, and historical consistency. Federal and state authority balance remains central to gun law interpretation. Judicial scrutiny increases whenever constitutional rights face regulatory limitations. Careful wording in court opinions can influence nationwide legal understanding. Legal precedent continues shaping how modern firearm restrictions are evaluated. Courts avoid politics, focusing instead on constitutional boundaries and legal reasoning. Each ruling contributes to the evolving framework of constitutional interpretation nationwide. Legal observers note subtle shifts often signal broader judicial transformation ahead. Understanding constitutional limits remains essential in evaluating firearm regulation legality. Historical analogies frequently guide courts reviewing modern Second Amendment challenges. The judiciary's interpretation determines how regulations survive constitutional examination. Careful constitutional reading often reshapes how existing firearm laws operate. Legal clarity today can influence legislative and judicial decisions tomorrow. Courts weigh rights, regulations, and constitutional principles with measured precision. Subtle legal developments sometimes carry long-term constitutional consequences nationwide. The evolving legal landscape continues shaping how gun regulations are reviewed. Understanding these shifts helps explain the future direction of constitutional law. Federal versus state authority. Federal and state authority together shape American gun laws. Some states enforce stricter firearm regulations than others. Other states rely on broader constitutional interpretation approaches. Federal legal reviews can influence multiple states simultaneously. Legal decisions sometimes create ripple effects across jurisdictions. Changes in interpretation often spread gradually through courts. Laws may face challenges, reviews, or careful adjustments. Legal evolution rarely happens instantly within constitutional systems. The judicial process moves carefully, step by step. Federal authority reviewing issues can reshape legal understanding. State governments watch closely when federal interpretation shifts. Court reasoning often determines how laws remain enforced. Constitutional balance defines long-standing gun law debates. Legal clarity helps courts apply regulations consistently nationwide. Judicial interpretation shapes how rights and regulations coexist. Federal and state power balance remains legally significant. Subtle legal developments sometimes influence future court rulings. Constitutional interpretation guides how modern regulations survive challenges. Courts evaluate laws using text, history, and precedent. Legal scrutiny increases when constitutional rights are examined. Historical understanding plays key role in judicial decisions. Federal review can trigger broader nationwide legal discussion. Legal precedent shapes future interpretation across different courts. Judicial balance protects both authority and constitutional limits. Law evolves through reasoning, not sudden dramatic change. Careful court language influences nationwide legal application. Legal structure determines how regulations function over time. State and federal dynamics continuously shape firearm policies. Understanding this balance explains ongoing constitutional legal debates. The legal process steadily shapes the future landscape. What experts are watching. Legal analysts are carefully observing emerging patterns, not just reacting to headlines. They focus on deeper signals hidden within legal language and reasoning. Court opinions often reveal more than immediate outcomes or decisions. Subtle wording in judgments can indicate future legal direction. Judicial reasoning frequently shapes how upcoming cases are interpreted. Constitutional interpretation evolves slowly through consistent legal examination. Many significant legal changes begin quietly, without dramatic public attention. A single clarification today can influence multiple rulings tomorrow. Courts build legal continuity through precedent and structured reasoning. Legal interpretation helps define how constitutional limits are applied. Experts examine patterns across rulings to understand broader judicial trends. Careful reading of court language often reveals underlying legal shifts. Judicial consistency plays a major role in long-term legal stability. Changes in interpretation rarely appear sudden, but gradually develop. Legal observers track how reasoning aligns with constitutional structure. Even minor clarification can guide the direction of future cases. Legal development is often evolutionary rather than immediate transformation. Experts continue monitoring how courts balance authority and rights. Interpretation today often shapes how future regulations are reviewed. Courts rely on history, precedent, and structured legal principles. Legal language can subtly reshape nationwide judicial understanding. Understanding these patterns helps predict future constitutional decisions. Careful judicial analysis ensures stability within evolving legal systems. Experts remain attentive as this legal direction continues developing. The legal landscape gradually transforms through interpretation and precedent. The road ahead. The future of gun laws in America will be shaped through ongoing legal reviews. Court decisions will continue guiding how regulations are interpreted nationwide. Constitutional interpretation remains central to understanding firearm law developments. Major legal change rarely occurs suddenly within structured judicial systems. Instead, legal momentum builds gradually through precedent and careful reasoning. Shifts in interpretation often emerge slowly across multiple court rulings. Judges carefully evaluate constitutional text, history, and established legal principles. Each ruling contributes to the broader framework of national legal understanding. Over time, interpretation may redefine how firearm regulations are examined. Courts play a key role balancing government authority and constitutional rights. Legal stability depends on consistent, careful, and reasoned judicial interpretation. Sometimes small rulings produce long-term nationwide legal consequences. Experts continue observing how legal momentum develops across jurisdictions. Patterns in court reasoning often signal the direction ahead. Constitutional debates evolve as courts confront new legal challenges. The relationship between regulation and individual rights remains closely examined. Legal precedent ensures continuity while allowing gradual judicial development. Subtle interpretive shifts can influence future legislative and judicial action. The legal process moves steadily, guided by constitutional structure. Observers recognize that meaningful legal change often begins quietly. Careful judicial language sometimes reshapes national legal understanding. Experts remain attentive as constitutional interpretation continues evolving. Federal and state dynamics remain central to firearm law discussions. Future rulings may clarify how regulations align with constitutional standards. Legal development rarely ends, it continues through ongoing review. Whether this moment becomes a turning point remains uncertain. It may represent another step within a long legal journey. The national conversation around firearm law continues evolving steadily. Courts, lawmakers, and legal scholars remain actively engaged. One thing is certain, the debate over gun laws continues.